Welcome everyone to our Packers News pregame live show alongside Pete Dougherty. I am Olivia Reiner. We are just 90 minutes away from Packers-49ers Thursday Night Football. We'll get you all up to speed on how COVID-19 and injuries are impacting the rosters, personnel, and the game plan in tonight's game. Before we get into that, as always, we want to hear from you. If you're over on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube, leave us a question down in the chat. Pete and I will get to some of those toward the end of our conversation today. If the current 49ers roster was a soda, they would be diet, caffeine-free, off-brand Coca-Cola. Between injury and COVID-19, the 49ers will only roll out 11 Week 1 starters on offense and defense combined. The offense only has one healthy wide receiver on the active 53 in Trent Taylor. What can 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan do to bring his team to life tonight?
Yeah, it's not just, that's a lot, half your starters out, but it's not just that half the starters out, it's the quality of the guys. Bosa, Ford, they're two outside rushers. Deebo Samuel's their best receiver, wide receiver. Kittle, their best pass catcher, best weapon in the, he's tight end, but he's their best weapon in the passing game. Garoppolo, their quarterback. Mostert, their best running back. These are, the corner, Richard Sherman. These are really good players that they're missing. You just can't make up for that. Now, the Packers are, between COVID and injuries, aren't in the greatest shape either. But with Aaron Jones playing, assuming he's healthy enough to play a lot and doesn't aggravate his calf injury during the game and have to leave, that's a big one. If you had asked me this morning if I thought Jones was going to play, I'd have said no, and that's a huge loss for the Packers. So having him and Adams and Rodgers, big advantage for the Packers. But still, back to your original question, Shanahan's really good at teaching the run game. Doesn't have his best guys out there, his best backs, but it's still a formidable run game, and I think we all know how bad the Packers' run defense can be, especially against this team. And Shanahan knows Pettine really well. He was his offensive coordinator when Pettine was head coach in Cleveland. And you sure get the feeling, don't you, that he understands something about Pettine's defense and Pettine's approach that, he's just gotten so much the better of Pettine in the two games that they played last year. It was just the difference was huge.
The 49ers running backs room is extremely thin heading into this game with Tevin Coleman, Raheem Mostert, and Jeff Wilson inactive tonight. That means JaMycal Hasty and Jerick McKinnon are active, and they will run the show for the running backs room. And they've been pretty strong so far. Through 8 games, McKinnon has had 47 carries for 209 yards and 4 touchdowns. Why are these running backs so effective at running the ball, even down their starters?
It must be things that Shanahan learned from his dad because, this is before your time, Olivia, but in the 90s when he was coaching Denver, they had Terrell Davis, Hall of Famer, put up huge numbers, but then he got hurt and his career ended. And it seemed like every back that they ran through there after him for the next however many years Shanahan was coached, probably, 7 or 8 or 10 years after that, every back they put out there was a good back and putting up, getting 1,200 yards in a year. So it must be something about the way they teach it. McKinnon, they spent a lot of money on him to sign him from Minnesota. That was a good player they signed. Now he had 2 ACLs. He missed 2 seasons, first 2 seasons in San Francisco. I think it was an ACL, and then he had to have a second surgery on it the next year because he was having some issues with that knee. But he's a talented guy, diminished, I'm sure, from the injuries, but still a talented guy. And especially, I think what they always liked about him was he's a good receiver, so they'll use him in the pass game. And it just dawned on me that yesterday, Juszczyk, I wonder what their plans are for him in this game. I bet we see a lot of him out there. Really good pass catcher. I think an okay runner. His running stats are okay, so maybe they'll even hand the ball off to him.
The Packers are also bit by injury and COVID-19. Running backs A.J. Dillon and Jamal Williams are inactive tonight as they are on COVID-19 reserve. However, the Packers get their saving grace back in running back Aaron Jones. He's missed the last 2 games with a calf injury. However, he is likely to be limited in this game. He was a game time decision today. How is head coach Matt LaFleur going to use him in the offense tonight?
I don't, I guess at these things, and I'm wrong just as often as right. So, flip a coin. Yeah, you would think though, soft tissue injury and all that, and he's not. He's a 60% snap player. You got to think it'll be lower than that. Maybe they're shooting for half or 40% or something. I don't think they're going to use him just in case of emergency. But their next halfback is Dexter Williams, and there are some real trust issues there with knowing the offense and everything. At least that's how it was last year, and he didn't make the roster this year. And then they put him out, for punt protection on the wing, and he didn't block the guy, or he kind of gave a half-hearted block and the punt got blocked last week. So, he's probably not in good graces. But he's all they got for halfback basically after Jones. So I would think he'll play a decent amount. I mean, Irvin can line up back there too, but he's really more wing back, slot receiver type guy than he is up here running back.
Irvin and Williams only have 15 combined career carries, so they're going to be looking for Aaron Jones to do something tonight, seeing as they have most of their trust in him. Inside linebacker Kamal Martin is also inactive tonight as he's been placed on COVID-19 reserve, and Christian Kirksey is still on injured reserve. So the Packers are dealing with Ty Summers, Chris Barnes, and James Burgess at inside linebacker. How confident is defensive coordinator Mike Pettin in the second level of his defense tonight?
We'll find out, right? Because these guys are going to run the ball. And so I'm sure if Raven Green is out there most of this game playing that kind of linebacker position, they will know the trust level is low because these guys are going to run the ball, and he's going to want that second inside linebacker to be his best run stopper. So if it's Green, that means that they like a 197-pound guy in there more than they like the guys in the 230s. So we'll find out. I would think that we're going to see a lot of two real inside linebackers and a decent amount of base defense. But I don't know that, and maybe it will be Raven Green out there.
Let's move over to Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube for some of your questions. Thank you all so much for joining us on this Thursday night. We appreciate it. Let's start with, we have a lot of questions about Aaron Jones. Eric wants to know, Pete, why don't you think Aaron Jones is going to be the feature tonight? Even with his injury, why wouldn't the Packers try to utilize them as much as they can, seeing as their running backs room is just decimated right now?
Well, it depends how concerned they are about his calf. They're pretty conservative about putting guys out there. They had Turner for a game earlier this year where they activated him game day, but they were only going to use him as an emergency. I find it a little hard to believe they would do that with Jones. He's such an important player to their offense. I would think it would be something you'd want to work around. And if you have any concern at all, then you leave him out. So Eric could be right, and maybe they'll have him out there for 60% of the snaps, and they feel good about it, and he'll play a lot. And if he does, that's a big edge for the Packers. I just wondered if they'll worry about fatiguing the calf, and then if he becomes more susceptible to injuring it if he fatigues it a lot. So I was thinking maybe they'll reduce his snaps to under 50%. But Eric, if what he's suggesting there, he could be right, and maybe Jones will play his 60% of snaps or even more.
We'll see on this first drive if the Packers decide to use Aaron Jones, maybe only on certain downs and distances in certain scenarios. We'll find out soon enough. Thank you, Eric, for participating as always. We love to see you. Let's take a question here from Bernard over on Facebook. Bernard asks, how far is wide receiver Allen Lazard away from recovering from the core muscle surgery? Great question, Bernard. Both wide receiver Allen Lazard and inside linebacker Christian Kirksey are currently on injured reserve, and they began practicing at the same time, not this week, but last Wednesday. So they've been practicing now for about 2 weeks. They have one more week before the Packers must make the decision to either put them on the active 53 or to put them on season-ending injured reserve. It's far more likely that they'll put them on the active 53 sooner rather than later because they're running out of time and they're both practicing, which is good news. How likely is it that we see Lazard activated, ready to go, back in action next week?
So you could answer this a lot better than I have. You have the honor of going and getting COVID tested every day, so you can watch practice. What do you think?
He looks like he's ready to go. He's happy to be back. I remember the very first day he was back, they were running through some individual drills, and he was already putting on some fancy footwork on the coaches, juking some coaches, making them miss with their pads, having a good time. His energy was high, back at practice for the first time last Wednesday. I think he's raring to go. They traveled to San Francisco this weekend. However, the Packers ultimately decided that they weren't going to activate them today, which is, I'm sure, the wide receiving talent, the playmaking talent that Allen Lazard brings to this team is sorely missed right now, Pete. How can he help this group of playmakers make more plays when he gets back?
Yeah, I was, Eric and I, obviously, we talk every Monday to do the column that we co-write, looking at the game tape and analyzing that. And we talked about that this week, just in our phone conversation. And, kind of are of the opinion he's better he's their number two. He's clearly their second best receiver. On a good receiving core, like on the 2011 Packers, he might not be on the team. So he's probably a legit 3/4, maybe a 3, a legit 3 for a lot of teams in the league. But, he's not what you'd call a real number two, but that's what the Packers have, and he will help. I mean, that's any little bit of an upgrade you can get if you're a contender at any position is going to help you out. And so he'll help him if and when he comes back, which sounds like, from what you've seen, could be next week.
Thank you, Bernard, for your question. Let's take a question here from Linda. Linda wants to know, why do you think the NFL didn't decide to move this game after they've moved other games in the past for COVID-19 related reasons? As Linda alludes to here, so 3 players on the Packers were placed on COVID-19 IR, and then 4 49ers players were also put on COVID-19 reserve. So you're looking at 7 players that are not playing in tonight's game, plus all the injuries that the 49ers are dealing with. And to be fair, the Packers are dealing with some injuries too. However, when you look at COVID-19 in particular, it's greatly impacting both of these teams. Why did the NFL decide to not move it from Thursday night to perhaps Sunday?
So I talked yesterday with a couple people in position to know this kind of thing, and they said that the NFL regrets or thinks they made a mistake in moving all those games around early in the season, because it potentially, you keep doing it, and you have to start canceling games. And of course, for the TV revenue, they want to get us all these games in. So in the last few weeks, they're just plowing ahead. And since this is a Thursday night and this is the only game that can be played, these are the only teams that can play on Thursday night. And that affects, that being the only game, that the networks are paying more money for this game. That's why they're plowing ahead. There's probably a pretty good argument that they should just move it to Sunday or Monday. There is a good argument. They should just, at least if they thought that some of these guys in the COVID list just for close contact could play, that seems like it would be the way to go. But I'm sure the TV revenue won out. And we knew going into this season, no matter what, that fairness is kind of out the window, because to get all the games in, there were going to be compromises, and teams just had to live with it. This is really extreme, but they just have to live with it. I think the league should have moved it and just bitten the bullet on the Thursday night, just because both these teams have lost so many guys. I get why they didn't, but I think they should have. But that's why they're playing it tonight instead of moving it to Sunday or Monday.
Thank you, Linda, for your question, one that we will continue to ponder, I'm sure, multiple times this season. Southwest Florida Packers fan club, good to see you, always a mouthful, wants to know if left tackle David Bakhtiari is active tonight. He is not active. He is inactive once again. He has been inactive since the Tampa Bay Bucs game, so it's been quite a few weeks since the Packers have seen David Bakhtiari on the field. Once again, they are likely to go with Billy Turner at left tackle and Rick Wagner at right tackle, although Wagner was a little banged up in practice this week. He popped up on the injury report. However, he is good to go tonight. How confident are the Packers in Turner and Wagner to hold down the edges?
A lot more than if they were facing D Ford and Bosa, right? I mean, Bosa's one of the best outside rushers in the league, and I would assume they would move him to whichever side that was the better matchup. So, whichever matchup they like better, that's where Bosa would have been on pass rushing downs a lot. So yeah, and Turner did okay playing left tackle the last game. They had a lot of plays where Rodgers got the ball out fast too, and I would suspect that's going to be part of the plan tonight. Again, is get the ball out quickly to help protect Turner at left tackle.
Thank you, Southwest Florida Packers fan club. Let's take a question here from Joel. Joel says, wide receiver Marquez ValdesScantling hasn't done very well. Should the Packers release him? His stats have been low over the last several games, and he's been targeted a fair number of times, however, not a ton. He's on his rookie contract, so he doesn't cost the Packers very much. How much of a leash do the Packers have with him moving forward, not this season, but going into next season and the season after?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I could see the temptation for wanting to cut him because he just, every time you think he's turned the corner, he has a bad drop. Or you can tell he doesn't track the ball well on a deep ball or something. But they just, what else do they have? And he still might help them this year. His speed, if he's running deep routes, he at least can clear guys out, in the secondary. So I just don't see cutting him this year. Although I know some people who know a lot about football who advocate that. But I can't see it. But unless he really comes on either in the second half of the season or down the stretch, the last month or so, he qualifies. I think he already qualifies for one of those salary escalators that fourth-year draft picks get. And so I think that's over $2 million, maybe $2.5 million. I can't remember the exact number, but I don't see him. I have a hard time seeing the Packers when they have to really pinch pennies next year to re-sign guys. I don't see him paying that for him. So I think he's in real jeopardy getting cut in the offseason unless he really does turn the corner and stays turned.
Thank you, Joel, for your question. Let's take this question here quickly from Nick. Nick asked, should the Packers not take quarterback Nick Mullins lightly tonight? He only has played in 4 games this season. He only has 2 starts. He came in relief of Jimmy Garoppolo against the Seattle Seahawks. However, even though the 49ers ultimately lost that game, Mullins played fairly well. He completed 18 passes, 25 attempts, 238 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns, 128.4 passer rating there, Pete. How are the Packers approaching this game with Nick Mullins at the helm of the offense?
So on Monday, I was talking with a scout for another team, and I was asking him, we started talking about this game, and he said his opinion is, he thinks, actually I was texting with him, and he said he thinks Nick Mullins is as good as Garoppolo, or close enough where the difference really doesn't matter much. I was a little surprised by that, but what part of the perception with him is there was a game, it was either a Sunday or Monday night a few weeks ago. Do you remember who they were playing? I can't remember who they were playing, but he played really poorly. He got pulled. Shanahan pulled him. And so that looked really bad, and he was playing poorly, but I don't take lightly that this is a longtime scout who said he thinks Mullins he likes the guy. He thinks he's as good as Garoppolo. So, that's fair warning for the Packers. That would suggest this guy is not just your usual backup. So they better take it seriously if this guy is at all right.
Thank you, Nick, for your question. That is going to do it for us tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the game. However, before you just pivot over to your television, I encourage you to check out PackersNews.com. Tom Silverstein and Leroy Butler will be live in just a couple of minutes. Head over there if you're a subscriber. They have lots of great insight. I will be over there giving them a watch as well. For Pete Dougherty, I am Olivia Reiner. We'll see you next time.